So I'd like you to turn to the book of Luke. It's, the book of Luke is actually, it is the gospel of the underdog. Literally, the gospel of the underdog. If you go to Luke, you will find every single person in there is someone that's either looked down on by society or put down by society in some way, or put down by religious leaders, or just, well, Jesus is put down as well, as he is in all the other books. But in the book of John, Jesus is very divine. And therefore, even though he's put down, we all know his real purpose. But in the book of Luke, you see him more as a man. Remember, these are different gospels, different writers, different journalists that are giving us the story from 4 different perspectives based on their background. And Luke was highly educated. In fact, if you go to the original text, you will find the longest words in all of the New Testament in Greek in the book of Luke. There, Acts is pretty hard because that's also Luke, and Hebrews. Those 3 are the hardest ones to translate. And my theory is that, of course, Paul wrote the book of Hebrews, but Luke penned it. But who knows? Maybe I'm wrong. I'll find out when we get to heaven. So, chapter 19 of the book of Luke. Jesus entered Jericho. Who here has been on one of our Bible tours? We've got a few. Wait, Andy and Esther. You guys were on our tour in Israel. Yeah, you went to Jericho. And anybody else here gone to Jericho? Jericho's a harder one, by the way, because that's in the Palestinian territory, even though it's right there, because it's kind of, the Palestinian-Israel thing is, you make these lines. You put lines, arbitrary lines, which don't make any sense, but they negotiated things and argued about them, and then everybody walks away from the table upset. That's just how all the negotiations work with that. And so in Jericho, you go in, and it's Palestinian, so sometimes we can't go in there. It's hard. But then, when everybody's in a good mood, you can go in there. You know how it goes with politics. And every time we head to the old city of Jericho, there is one thing. And I'm going to ask, James, I forgot to have my clicker, so do you mind doing the forward? Go ahead and let's show us the pictures up there. And Lily, throw the double shot up here for me. And that right there is a sycamore tree. You see that sycamore tree? And it has a gate around it, so people can't just attack it. It's a very old sycamore tree. I don't think it's 2,000 years old. But because, fig sycamores don't live like olive trees. At the Church of All Nations over there in Gethsemane, there are 2,000+ year old trees. Because it is known that the olive tree never dies. Now, we won't know that, but that's the tradition. You take a root of an olive tree, you put it in a basement, not buried, you stick it in the ground 100 years later, and it can grow. Now, it's amazing. In fact, that's why the Jewish people call it the tree of life. And because it is a non-dying tree, so to say. You have to burn it and really destroy it. Have you ever had those kind of plants that you really hurt and then they just keep coming back? Sometimes we see bad things as that, don't we? But this is a sycamore fig tree. Fig. Who here likes figs? About fruit. There's a date in Israel. You can go to now and you can eat a date from I believe it was from the Dead Sea Scrolls, Qumran area. There were some date seeds that were found, and they got them to grow. Through genetic engineering, got the chromosomes, and they somehow were able to, because of course, date trees have a male-female tree, and you different types of trees and how they pollinate. And down in the area of Eilat, they have a bunch of them in a compound. And you can buy for a very high price, but it tastes a little different than all the other dates you find. So the sycamore fig, thank you so much, Fabio. So the sycamore fig tree is the one that this story is dealing with. And I have to remember, I'm supposed to end soon. But I'd like you to take a look at another sycamore fig. Take a look at this one. This one is not at Jericho, but this is the general look of a sycamore fig tree. The general look. Because many of the trees in Jericho have there's a lot that were taken out through different stuff that happened historically. But this place is this has an older, and take a look at that design there. Do you see that arm hanging out, the branch coming out? Kind of reminds me, who here has looked at the oak tree that's right over the top of our classroom complex here? Now, I'm not supposed to cut anything on that, according to Glendale, that's over this size. The only problem is one of the arms, one of the limbs, it was hanging over the top of the building. And all we need is to have a windstorm, which we have here pretty much twice to 3 times a year, going at about 60 miles an hour sometimes. And I look at that thing moving. I'd like to keep the building. But the thing is it's one of those, it reaches out, and you could climb on it with your belly outward. So, let's continue reading here. Luke chapter 19. Jesus entered Jericho and was passing through. As Jesus was passing through from Galilee to Jerusalem, a man was there, and his name was Zakkar. In Hebrew, Zakkar. Zacchaeus is the Greek name of it, right? But Zakkar. Zakkar, you know what that means? Innocent. Not blamed. A good guy. One that has the angel's eyes in the room. Have you ever had that? When all the kids are in the room and something happened. So what happened? And everyone looks angelic. Oh, me? Moi? Human nature. Zakkar is his name. Zacchaeus, Greek form. It's just like John or Juan, right? Juan back there. We got Juan and we got John. Same. Or in Hebrew, the Yonathan, right? The same name, but it goes across different cultures. I love that, Steve, that message of culture. Jesus has come to reach all cultures. He's the God of all people. Sometimes governments get messy, but the kingdom of heaven brings people together. A real country without borders, right? And your passport to that country is faith. The visa, baptism. My friends, I want you to be a part of that country. But I digress. Back to Zacchaeus. And he was a chief what? Tax collector. Okay. Who here likes your IRS agents? Now imagine, because America is very different. Imagine if the IRS was planted at every city right in front of it. And when you came in, there's a toll bridge. And you come in, and the guy, he says, how much do I pay? Well, the tax guy needs some extra money because he's having a party on Wednesday. So he says the words, like in National Lampoon's Vacation, how much does it cost? How much you got? Sir, no, I was asking how much it costs. And the guy says, I was asking how much you got. Well, that's it. That's how they would work. Because literally, the Romans would run this kind of like a little bit of a pyramid scheme. Because if you think about it, it's really hard. Israel's a long way from Rome. So what you do is you set up these tax collectors. And you say, you get a commission. You get a cut of everything that goes to Caesar. Right? Now they go and they audit your books and make sure that you're giving to Caesar what you're supposed to. Don't keep it all for yourselves. They want to see the percentages. And there's Roman soldiers to make sure that's enforced. But in the end, it's a business for the tax collector. Now, let me ask you, if an IRS existed like that, would you like the person? Every time you enter the city, if you got a BMW, he's going to tax you a lot more than the guy with a car. Actually, I have a Lincoln, so I can't, but it's a hybrid. I try to save money, but it costs more. Wait a minute. Right? How do you play it? I'll play it like, can I just get a Toyota from 1973 so that nobody taxes me? It's a rattle trap. How do you get away from being taxed? So, of course, people are not going to like this guy. This innocent guy that's in charge of all the tax collectors. He comes along. Okay, so now, Jesus is now let me get back to this now. For you to understand tax collection, now we move to the next step, which is, he enters Jericho, Jesus does. And there was a man named Zacchaeus. He was a chief collector. And he was rich, obviously. He wanted to see who Jesus was. He wanted to see who Jesus was. That makes sense because in today's culture, we have these things with YouTube and media. Everyone easily knows what Donald Trump looks like, right? Because you see him 24/7 on the news. And his hair, okay? All of it, you see, okay? Every day. It's easy to know who he is. But how do you know what Caesar Augustus looks like? He's on a coin, but that's a coin that's like an artist thing, and it really doesn't look the same because it was scraped and whatever. So if he walked into the room, you really don't know who it is unless someone tells you. In the same way, we all talk about this guy named Jesus, and he's coming around. But what does he really look like? I mean, I heard when he was speaking, he was way over on the other side, right? I was trying to hear what he was saying, and he's way in the distance, but too many people were in my way, right? You don't have social media. You don't have any of this stuff. So Zacchaeus, being a very smart guy, who was, by the way, vertically challenged. All I can think of when I think of Zacchaeus is Danny DeVito. You ever see Danny DeVito? If I had enough time, there is a film where he steps out of a car and literally his head does not go up, it stays the same level. One of my favorite, that guy was awesome. That guy was awesome. And I always think of Danny DeVito when I think of Zacchaeus. Because, I don't know, I'm John Aitken. I don't know why, but I do. And I can imagine him looking at a tree and saying, how do I work this situation out? I've got power. I've got money. But I want to go incognito and because people if I just wear something different and I climb in a tree, no one's going to think I'm the guy. Well, unless you really know him, right? So he goes to a tree like this one, and he starts to climb. Let's read this. And by the way, if you're climbing a tree to see someone that you don't know how they look, and you're trying to get in the tree because at least you can be above the crowd so that maybe if Jesus comes that way, you can catch a glimpse of what he looks like. Maybe he was trying to scope him out for taxation. I don't know. But I think something was going on in his life. When we come around Jesus, stuff is happening in our lives and we don't notice it, and then somehow something hits us and you start to feel that empty thing. Have you ever had that empty part right here? Like maybe you have money, maybe you have nice stuff, and so how we fill that emptiness is more stuff. It's a black hole that we have in our soul sometimes. We want more. Have you ever wanted to get on YouTube and you really wanted to just watch something? Well, you get to the end of the thing and you go to the next thing. The death scroll, right? Facebook does that to you, or Instagram. especially Twitter, well, X or whatever it is. It's like you can't stop yourself. And I have to say, stop. I rebuke thee. Away from me, thee worker of evil. I shall have life unto myself. We all get like that in our lives. We want more and more and more. Have you ever eaten so much and yet your mouth still wants a taste? Money, sex, and power. Those three things are a deadly combination. And all of them intermingle with one another in our lives, and happiness does not come from them. We try. We try to use our bodies and our money and our position to be able to gain happiness, and yet it's not good enough. There's something gnawing at us. It's eating away at us. Happiness is not found. I have not found joy in my life. So many people have died with so much money, and yet on their deathbed they say, I had all of this, and yet my money did nothing. My children, my grandchildren are fighting over it. Maybe I've gotten too old and no one wants me anymore. Maybe, there's all different levels of unhappiness we experience. So how do we face it? Most of the time we reach out to a bottle or to a joint or something that makes us feel better about ourselves. But guess what happens? You feel good for a short time, and then in the morning, no more. Slowly you start to feel like dirt again until you get another hit, and now you're caught in addiction. Zacchaeus, the innocent one, climbing the tree to just see a glimpse of light, a glimpse of Jesus. And Zacchaeus is just like me and you. He ran ahead, climbed into a sycamore fig tree to see Jesus, since Jesus was coming that way. When Jesus reached the spot, he looked, what? Up. The first time Zacchaeus gets to have someone look up at him, huh? Jesus looks up. Get your butt down from that tree. I know you. You've been doing this. And by the way, Jesus did know. Jesus had a spirit that understood our spirits and knew us. Our spirit knows us. It says it literally. Jesus says he could read their spirit. It says with the Pharisees when they were quietly asking inside themselves things, he would answer them sometimes with a parable. Jesus did not see the short man in the tree. He saw Zacchaeus, Zachara, the man who Zacchaeus could be, not the one who he is. Pygmalion philosophy, the teacher, Pygmalion. My wife is a teacher, and Elena's was a teacher many years. The Pygmalion concept that you don't look at your child that's a student as what they are, but you look at what they can be. We need to learn that, don't we? I needed that. My spelling is horrible. I had to re-edit the video for the memorial 1,000 times. And the last time Anna looked at it, all the way, oh, it's so beautiful, John. And it said, see you in the mooring. Anna goes, wow. And I start the normal thing that I used to do in second grade, hitting my head. Okay, John, why are you so dumb? This is how Zacchaeus felt. Have you ever felt like that? Be honest with yourself. We're not as cool as we think we are, or we try to portray ourselves to be. Jesus looks up at him And he said, Zacchaeus, you, what? Come. You ever heard that song? Yeah. He looked up in the tree and he said, Zacchaeus. What? You come. I like the you part. You come down, for I'm going. Now, how do you like that? I need to do that as a pastor. I'm going to your house today. Right? I learned in Los Angeles I don't do that. In Oregon, you could kind of drop by. But boy, in Los Angeles, man, forget it. People are like, oh, pastor, yeah, I'd love you. I'll meet you at the church. You know that one. You know that one. There's a few that say, okay, no problem. But a lot of people are like, no, that's it. Jesus says, I don't care. I'm going to your house today because I know you're having a party. And probably, I'm going to just be overstating. I know some of the things you're doing at the party isn't good, but I don't care because I want you. Huh? How do you like that about Jesus? Happiness. Happiness. All of a sudden, all of the stuff that he had that meant so much to him 5 seconds ago now becomes worthless. Doesn't mean anything. Yeah, sure, I got a great phone, I got a great car, I got a great house, but I'm unhappy. Or maybe I don't have any of those things, but at least I got a job that I kind of like. But it doesn't get me anywhere, especially when the boss doesn't, everything can change in this world. But if your happiness is embedded, not in what others think of you or what you think of yourself, but instead embedded in the will of Jesus, who has a completely different plan for you than you realize, but yet uses the same talents that you've got because he made them for something, and you didn't even know it. How do you like that? Boom. He got you in the core of his mission today. He came down and welcomed him gladly. Verse 7, and all the people saw this, and they began to complain, mutter. You know what muttering is? Hi, how are you doing, sir? The long look. You know when someone looks at you and they're happy, and then you turn again back, and all of a sudden you notice their face is a little different? Those micro things. They exist, guys, okay? The world of Machiavelli still exists today. They mutter under their breath. He, Jesus, has gone to be the guest of a sinner. Wow. What a terrible thing. Can we be a guest of a sinner? God forbid. Right? Jesus doesn't care. But Zacchaeus then stood up and said to the Lord, look, Lord, here now I give half of my possessions to the poor. And if I have cheated anyone, and by the way, in the original language, the way it's put together is the second one. There's like 3 conditional sentences. The second one, which is, if I've messed anyone over, and I have. That's what it means. That's how the construct is, how Luke wrote it. If I've messed with anyone, if I've cheated anyone, and I have, I'll pay it back 4 times the amount. Jesus then says, today, not in the future, not when he pays it back, today, salvation has come to this house. Because this man, too, is a son of Abraham. For the Son of Man came to seek and to save who? Have you been searching for happiness? One that cannot be taken away. One that does not change with elections or stuff in your pocket or houses you live in. Have you been looking for real happiness? One that is deep, warm, and burns. And when you throw fire, when you throw water on it, it actually is very hard to put those coals out of happiness. Have you been searching for that kind of happiness? The kind of happiness you can have even when your body gets old and you need a walker? And people don't like you in the room maybe. Maybe you're young and people turn your back on you, and yet you still have a shalom type happiness in your heart. Have you been looking for that kind of happiness? There is only one place you're going to find it. You've got to find it in Jesus. I don't care what you have. I don't care where you go. I don't care what beach you lay on. You will never find true, long, burning happiness without walking with Jesus. He needs you to be on his team.